One thing I've been noticing with a few people that are in recovery is they're like, well, I really want to do this, but my sponsor doesn't want me doing it, or just I'm in recovery and recovery is the most important thing in my life, so I can't take part in ketamine therapy. What would you say to those kind of
people? Back in 1979, Dr. Bill and Dr. Bob introduced LSD. They don't really talk about that part. Why did they introduce it, then take it away? Because it's a healing property. So if your sponsor is telling you, oh, you can't do this, well, then I think it's time to either sit down and have a real deep conversation with your sponsor or find a new one.
Welcome to the Myself Wellness Podcast. I'm Charles Patti, the voice of Myself Wellness, along with my co-hosts Christina Thomas and Jamie Venziel. 9 years ago, I began my journey to self-awareness and healing. Like many who have faced personal struggles, I felt lost and struggled to find lasting healing. It wasn't until I discovered alternative healing methods that I began to see a real change in my life. This show will help you unlock your true potential through healthy lifestyle practices and transformations. Join us as we explore personal stories, expert advice, and practical tips to help you step into your true potential and level up. Welcome to the Myself Wellness Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Myself Wellness Podcast. Today we have Amanda Blanchette. Amanda came to us 4 years ago, and she has been doing amazing ever since. Ketamine really helped her on her journey, and we're so excited to have her here today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So it's been a minute since we first started talking, you know, and we were talking about the whole evolution of everything earlier. So I would love to hear, because see, here's one thing that I think people get hung up on is I get people like they'll go through their treatments and they're feeling better, but they're just like, well, you know, I feel better, but I don't feel like where I'm supposed to be yet. And so like, can you relate to that at all? I'd love to hear about that.
Absolutely. I was just talking to you about this before we sat down. My first experience was 3 years ago, and looking at the journey of what happened 3 years ago to where I'm at today, it's 180-degree difference. 3 years ago, I came into your clinic. I had done all the research because I was a little wary about taking ketamine. That's what I used to do when I was in active addiction. So really doing the in-depth dive of information to try to figure out, is this going to help me? So 3 years ago in 2021, I walked into your clinic and I bought a pack of 6 and I said, please help me on my healing journey. And I remember it like it was yesterday doing my first treatment. I sat down, I had the mask. It was just a beautiful situation. And when I came out of that, I could literally feel my brain starting to mend itself back together. Next month, I'm coming up on 10 consecutive years of sobriety, and never in my wildest, it gives me goosebumps, never in my wildest dreams did I think I would hit a decade of sobriety. So at 6.5 years sober, I came into your clinic and I didn't care what anybody had to say. It wasn't their position to tell me, oh, you're doing this or you're not doing this, because it's everybody's journey. I heard your video the other day about stay in your own lane. And when it comes down to recovery, everybody has their own journey to go on. Ketamine 100% changed my life.
I love the fact that you were open about that. And 6 years into or 6.5 years into your recovery, you thought that this could help take you to the next level.
What were you struggling with? What brought you to us?
Yeah.
I was going through a court custody battle against my parents. I fought them for 3.5 years to get my daughter back. In 2015, I went to a year-long faith-based program, and I did a whole entire year. My daughter was 35 days old the day I went into the program. So that was hormones, new state, no relationship. It was very eye-opening, to say the least. So when I went through that program, I did everything. I checked all the boxes. I made sure I did what I needed to do, sponsors, meeting. And I'm very fluid when it comes to recovery because it's my story. And nobody can take it from me or alter it. What was the question again?
What originally brought you to us? Like, why did you, 6 years into your recovery journey, what were you struggling with that you thought ketamine would help?
Sure. So 10 years ago is when I first met Charles at one of the places that we would frequent. And I had a conversation with him, and it was very eye-opening to see other people going through their journey. And so when you had opened Myself Wellness, I was following you on social media, and I was watching your journey, being in the same, I don't know if I can say in recovery. Is that how that works? Okay. being in recovery and knowing that this is what you're doing. And I followed you and I was very admirable. And then I met you, Christina. But at 6.5 years, I had done the meetings, the sponsorship. I had gone to church. I was doing all of the boxes that needed to be checked. And there was still something that just wasn't right. So I had fought to get my daughter back for 3.5 years, and she was home with me for about a year. And I just knew something else needed to happen. So I went down the rabbit hole. I did all of the investigative reporting that I could for ketamine. And looking at it when you're not in your active addiction compared to when you're in active addiction, it's night and day. So knowing that ketamine replenishes the neurotransmitters that have been fried from all of the drug use that I endured. So I gave it a shot, and I had no idea what I was walking into because I had never experienced ketamine sober. And the outcome that came from that first treatment, I did the first pack of 6, and then I came back and I did another 3, and then I came back and I just recently saw you guys not too long ago. I wish everybody knew about this, especially neurodivergencies. I'm ADHD. I had never been medicated my entire life. I went complete abstinence. I did no drugs, no alcohol, no nothing for 6.5 years, and I was very proud of that. I'm still very proud of where I am because I have not touched drugs or alcohol in almost 10 years. But it's the mentality. It's the what state of mind are you in, and why are you doing this? It's the motive behind it. And my intention was to heal. It wasn't to get high or to go and do something that's shady, because a lot of people have a negative connotation when it comes to ketamine or psilocybin. I don't. And I'd love to stand on the mountaintop and tell everybody about it because this is my journey.
I love that. And like, for me in my journey, I would get sober and I had done so much self-work and I would get to a good place, but I didn't realize how sick I still was until I actually experienced ketamine. And like, not from like a damaged place, but like, I just wasn't where I needed to be with the symptoms of depression, anxiety, PTSD. And I think that that's actually for a lot of people in recovery, and they might just not know it. And one of the hardest points that I try to get across to people is to people that have previous ketamine or psychedelic experience when they were using it recreationally to party. And I try to explain how different that this is rather compared to, you know, doing ketamine at a rave or something like that. What did you notice that was the big difference, not just from your intention, but from the actual experience with the medicine, from using it recreationally and then using it intentionally?
The biggest difference is, how do I come down from 3 nights of partying consecutively to walking into your clinic and sitting in that chair and having, from start to finish, someone walking me through it and having a psychedelic nurse with me, because I didn't know what I was going to experience. I don't remember what it was like taking ketamine in my active addiction. I don't remember a majority of that, but I'll never forget this experience. It was the setting, it was the people, it was the whole 9 yards. No matter what had happened in my active addiction, I don't remember a majority of it, but after 10 years, I'll tell you, those things that I told myself I'd never remember come back. But it's the healing journey for me. The difference of sitting in the chair is knowing that I was in a safe, comfortable environment and that I'm being watched, and that if something were to come up, someone would be there for me.
Ketamine's a relapse. What would you say to that person?
Absolutely not. I would say, come and sit down and have a conversation with me and tell me why you think that.
Yeah.
Because that was my concern when I first came into your clinic. Is, what is everybody going to think of me? I cared more about what other people's opinions of me were than what I actually felt.
And when, you know what I've noticed too, though, a lot of the people that cast judgment on those kind of things, they're not actually in a place where I would really want to be. So it's, you know, even when you talk about looking for a sponsor, when you go into the rooms, like, I see this person and it's somebody that I see something in them that I want for myself. And I feel that a lot of people that are casting judgment like that isn't really somebody that I would want to be myself.
Absolutely not.
So when we talk about the evolution of everything, because we did a video like this a few years ago, and you're like, you have to take that down because I've come so far since then.
You've had such a glow up since then too.
Thank you.
Like, you're a totally different version of yourself.
Energetically, physically, you're glowing.
I think that's why I look at it and I'm like, please take it down, because that's not who I am today.
But the thing is I would love to hear that you know, you were in a good place then though. Like you had actually had growth from the treatments and like growth from life experience and working on yourself. What evolution? Because see, you obviously did the work. You did the work. Look at you. So what was the evolution that took place after doing those sessions to get you to where you're at now? Because I think a lot of people need to hear what they need to continue to do after they do the treatments.
Right. So at 6.5 years, I was still depressed. I had no self-worth. I had no self-love. I did the work, but I did what I was told to do. Go to meetings, go to church, find a sponsor, make sure you call another alcoholic, which I still do today. But I made AA my God because that's what I was told that needs to be done. You need to be in a meeting every single day. Along my journey, coming up on 10 years, I'm not going to say anything bad about meetings because it saved my life. But I haven't been to a meeting in, I want to say 3 or 4 months because of what goes on in the meetings. It's very cliquey. It's very judgmental. And I would rather stay at home and not have to take that back. I take that back. That's not true. The difference of 6.5 years ago and where my transition was is that I had no self-love. And that's the biggest thing that I can say. I checked all the boxes. I made sure I had a sponsor. I made sure I was trying to sponsor others. Being of service, going to meetings every day. I found AA was some people thrive in AA and some people thrive in church. So each individual person is different. It's not you group a whole bunch of alcoholics together and they're all going to act and respond the same way, and that's not me. I took on the role of being the redheaded stepchild and the black sheep of the family. And then I started doing more research after, I want to say 6 or 7 treatments with you guys. And I realized that the black sheep of the family is usually the one that takes a step back and can see all of these things. My gifts that God had given me, thank you, Jesus, gave me more of an intuitive description so I could see and feel and read people. And so when I was told you need to go to a meeting every single day, it was overwhelming. Why do I need to go to a meeting every single day? And so after 6.5 years of going to meetings every single day, why isn't anything changing for me? And looking back at that video, oh boy. And I can critique myself. I had super short hair and I wore the wrong outfit and I felt uncomfortable with the interviewer, but I wasn't comfortable with myself. I can make excuses from Adam to Eve. But when it comes down to it, the transition for me was I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, you are beautiful. You are a child of God. And I firmly believed it. For the first 6.5 years, I was just going through the motions. I didn't know what I was doing. And that's okay that I didn't know what I was doing. But then I woke up one day and I said, you want to know what? Life can be a lot different. I don't have to care about what other people think of me because it's not their position. They're not in my head or in my body, nor live my life. That's the biggest thing for me.
I think that there's a really important underlying message that came along with everything that you just said, and that it's my recovery doesn't have to look like your recovery.
Thank you.
My recovery is my recovery. And if it's working for me, I'm really happy that it's working for me. And if what you're doing in your recovery is working for you, I'm really happy that it's working for you as well. But I don't ever think that there's a play on like my recovery is better than your recovery. I think that people are just looking to love themselves, feel better, get well, and stay sober and not have to white knuckle it through their days every day. And if anybody out there finds something that works for them, that's great. I'm happy for you. But if you have been trying to get to a place like that and nothing has got you there or worked for you, I think that ketamine therapy or psychedelic therapy is a great option.
Amen. I agree.
One of the most common questions that we get is, am I going to have to do ketamine for the rest of my life? And you are a perfect testament to no. The answer is no. You did 9 treatments to start, right?
Yep.
And then you went 2 years and you just recently did 1 treatment and how was it?
And then 1 6 months ago as well.
Yeah.
Well,
so and how was it like in between all of that time? Like how did you feel like you needed to come back sooner? Did you fight through it, or were you just kind of in this good state?
with what she's asking, I would love for you to answer too, because you're in recovery, did you feel that after you did ketamine therapy, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to do ketamine therapy all the time? Because I think that that's a really big hurdle for people that are in recovery that are like, well, if I do this, am I going to get addicted to it and want to do it all the time?
If I can talk to anybody and say, are you going to get addicted to ketamine treatment? Every person is different, but I didn't. What I found from ketamine is I was going through an emotional time. My mom had slipped and fallen and had an aneurysm burst in her, and I have a very estranged relationship. So I came into your facility. I did a treatment before I went up to Rhode Island, and then I did one when I came back. And the amount of healing that I received from that was bar none. There was nothing that I could think of other than I know how to heal myself right now through this trauma, because going into ketamine for me, it was digging out all the garbage that I had done, rewiring my neurotransmitters, because I just didn't know how to handle life. There was no addiction purposes when it came down to ketamine. I didn't feel like I craved it or I needed it, or I felt like I needed to do it the rest of my life. Like any other type of drug that's out there, it's not heroin, it's not cocaine, it's not something else, but also having the intention and the motive as to why are you doing this? It wasn't to get high. Doing ketamine for me was to help me heal.
That's beautiful.
How was the reaction of people in the recovery community when they found out? Because you did the video for us and a lot of people saw it. Did you get any negative feedback? Was it positive feedback? I'd love to hear what your experience was with that.
I didn't care what anybody had to say.
I love that.
So when I communicated what I was doing in my life, I didn't go and sit in a meeting and say, hey guys, my name is Amanda, I'm in recovery. I just did ketamine, it was the best thing of my life. Because when you walk into a room like AA, they want to strictly keep it for alcoholic, and then NA is for narcotics. I found my tribe of people, and I only told a few, and I know that the video is out there and that anyone can access it that has the internet. Their opinion of me does not matter today. And so if this works for me, then this works for me, and I support anyone who goes through a journey of their own, but I'm here to just support people. The ones that have negative things to say are not my people.
Yeah. No, I can't agree more.
I pray for them because they're still not my people, though.
Yeah.
What kind of like self-care things do you do that keeps you going?
Well, I'm a single mom and a business owner.
Yeah.
My self-care is being able to go to the beach and stick my feet in the sand, sit out back. I love to work today. I'm a wallpaper installer, and I never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd find my purpose in transforming spaces. It took a lot for me to get out of a few different relationships that had brought me down lower than I thought that I could be. And it took a lot of rebuilding with God and going to church. And that's my self-care today, because I know that Jesus literally grabbed my hand and said, no, we're not ready for you yet, because of the destructive path that I was on. Self-care is going to get my nails done with my 9-year-old, or just doing something fun. I love that question when you start dating someone, what do you like to do for fun? I have no idea, but I know that today my life is beautiful. So whatever it is that I'm doing, if it's, reading a daily devotional with my daughter or singing praise and worship on the way to school, I just try to find the good in everything, because no matter what, there'll be 99 positive and 1 negative, and the negative people will hinge on to that 1 negative. And that's not my plan today.
I love that. So I would love to hear, I know you just kind of briefly mentioned it, but I would love to hear about what you're up to these days.
Oh.
For work and life, and just Sure. If you want to plug your company, that kind of stuff.
Sure. 2 years ago, I started a cleaning company. So I would follow behind all the men and do post-construction cleanup. I don't want to hug toilets anymore. So I quickly realized that being in the cleaning industry, it's very time consuming and it's very physically demanding. A client asked me 2 years ago, hey, do you do wallpaper? I had never done wallpaper before. And I said, sure, why not? So I did all my research and I did her job, and I did a really good job. So I'm like, hey, maybe I can do this. The second and third job wasn't as good. So I started training with a gentleman that I've known. He had 20 years of experience in the industry, and I just followed behind him for 8 months and I watched. I'm a very visual learner. I can read, but when it comes down to learning an art or a craft or a niche business, I wanted to follow behind someone that had the experience. So Number One Essential Home Services is my company, and we are a wallpaper installation, removal, and it's been one of the wildest journeys. I'm walking into $10.5 million homes, and I am trusted to walk into these people's homes when 10 years ago, I wasn't even trusted with my own life. It's definitely been a journey. So for the last, I want to say 7 or 8 months, my business has definitely gone through an expansion, which is beautiful all in itself. Being able to verbalize and communicate with clients. When a woman shows up to do an installation, it's a lot different than a man, not discrediting men, but we're very detail oriented, and I make sure from start to finish that the client is happy and taken care of. And I feel like I finally found my purpose doing something bigger than myself, because it's not about me, it's about helping others. And so if I can use that today, then I'm happy.
I love that.
Beautiful.
We always we find things when we go through things to be of service and help other people. And like, that's even in recovery, or then it must be incredibly gratifying to like give people a better life in the aspect of working with them and working on their homes as well.
Absolutely.
I know Christina wants some help coming up.
Oh, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Doing it.
I love
We
it.
already planned that.
Okay.
You're late to the party per usual.
Late to the party.
It's happening.
Yeah.
That's exciting stuff.
So what do you see? I know we're in the now, but like, what do you see in your future?
I don't know what God has for me yet. There's a lot of internal meditation that I need to do. I don't get to do it every day, and I'm guilty of that. I know just sitting quietly and asking, what is it that you'd like me to do, and how do you want me to serve others today? I've been very engulfed in being a single mom and a business owner, that majority of the time I don't think about myself. And that's okay. That's being selfless, but to a certain degree. I don't know what God has for me yet. I know that there's something bigger and better. That's terrible to say. It's not bigger and better, because what I'm doing is pretty big in itself. I'm just working on getting my daughter to graduate 4th grade this weekend, and then we can see what happens from there.
I think it's I loved how there was like a humble essence to what you were saying, but I think it's good to have big aspirations for ourselves, but while in part with that, being very grateful for what I have today. Right. And I noticed that, we have visions, or I have visions of where the direction that I want to go. But I know that the only way that I'm going to get there is by being in a place of gratitude and surrendering and giving all praise to God, and after all of that happens, then God, the universe, ends up putting you in that direction.
Right.
So if you had a message for people out there that I would love to even just specifically ask for people that are in recovery. It doesn't have to be, but one thing I've been noticing with a few people that are in recovery that I've been trying to talk to about treatments is they're like, well, I really want to do this, but my sponsor doesn't want me doing it. And, I don't want to upset my sponsor. I don't know. Like, for me personally, I feel like if your sponsor is blocking you from doing something that could potentially take your life to a better place or help you with depression and anxiety and all of these things, is that really somebody that I would want to be taking direction with? Like, that's just like my comment on it. But like, I would love to hear what your message to people are that were thinking that this is going to make people in the rooms upset with me, or my sponsor is going to get mad at me for doing the treatments, or just I'm in recovery and recovery is the most important thing in my life, so I can't support ketamine therapy or take part in ketamine therapy. What would you say to those kind of people?
Back in 1979, Dr. Bill and Dr. Bob introduced LSD. They don't really talk about that part. I do, because why did they introduce it, then take it away? Because it's a healing property. My sponsor at 6.5 years, I've changed sponsors since then. She was very open-minded to it. She wasn't so negative. When it came down to it, I sat down, I had a nice long conversation with her about what my intention was going to be. At 6.5 years, she had stood by me in court watching me fight to get my daughter back. She had seen my journey with my drug of choice, like I'm a miracle sitting here today and that I'm not in a grave. So if your sponsor is telling you, oh, you can't do this, well, then I think it's time to either sit down and have a real deep conversation with your sponsor or find a new one. For somebody to block your blessing and to tell you that you can't do something, for me, makes me want to do it even more. But why do you want to do this? Let's have an open and honest conversation, because if you're just automatically discrediting a healing treatment, there's something going on in that person's life. I also made my sponsor my higher power, and then I had God. Why am I treating this person who's just like I am because they have a couple more years of sobriety than I do? You get people that are 6 months sober compared to 25 years. 6 months is a little bit more mature than the 25-year sober person. Mm-hmm. So everybody has their own agenda in life and things going on. So when you get a sponsor, it's someone to guide you through the steps.
When it comes to recovery, I'm much more about quality over quantity.
Amen.
Because like, I know some people that have multiple years of sobriety under their belt. And like, from me seeing some of what I used to go through still in them, it's not a place where I would really want to be. And so for me, it's like, listen, like, this is a bold statement, but there's a real distinct possibility that if you're in the rooms of AA or NA or any other kind of 12-step meetings, that you should probably consider doing psychedelic therapy. Right. Just because I know what it did for me, and I have seen what it's done for so many of my other friends that had similar battles. And this isn't about a trip or getting high. It's about getting to the root issue and the root cause of why you self-medicated for all of those years to begin with. So like, taking the drugs and alcohol out of the equation or taking it out of somebody is just the first step in the healing journey. And I think people too get too caught up in like, oh, I've been sober and I'm sober for X amount of years, but it's like, but all you did was get sober. You know, it's like, it doesn't seem like you've really elevated your consciousness or like the way that maybe you even, I've noticed, treat people sometimes and things like that. So I don't know. That's my message to everybody. If you've had substance abuse issues or alcohol abuse problems, there's a distinct possibility that ketamine or psychedelic therapy could do amazing things.
Medicine for the mind.
Medicine for the mind.
And I agree with what you just said. So I didn't do any spiritual, economic growth. I just didn't use drugs and I didn't use alcohol for 5.5, 6 years. So at 6.5 years, I just taken two things out of the equation and I didn't replace it with anything. So addiction can be drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, anything that you put in front of who you are. And it was just for me. I didn't have any motivation. My motivation was to get my daughter back. So I went to meetings, I worked 2 jobs, and then I went home and slept. I didn't do anything emotionally for myself. That was a beautiful message. Absolutely.
I know it's been a while, but do you have an experience that you had on the medicine that really stuck out to you, that was incredibly profound and really helped you take things to the next level?
Absolutely. The last 3, and they were spread far out in between each other. I woke up and I felt like I died. And so I was speaking to the nurse and I was like, oh, I don't know what happened. And she goes, yeah, it was probably an ego death. I was like, well, what does that mean? Because as I was in my treatments, and this was the last 3 consecutive, so there was like a year between the first and the second, and then the most recent one. And an ego death for me was to get rid of everything that I thought was right, and I gave it to God. Because if I try to run my life today, I'm not getting very far. But being grateful and being kind to people, that doesn't just come, just like common sense. It's not a given, and you can't go to college for it. My ego death completely wiped out every intention that I had of, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Why aren't I good enough? Still at 10 years of sobriety. I mean, I can't say I'm 10 years yet. I have another month, and that's what they tell us to do. An ego death, I'm like, are you serious? What does that mean? I got rid of who I thought I was, and I replaced it with my consciousness. That small, still voice that we listen to. Yeah, I listened to it.
People say ego death, and I also, and I do too, but I also look at it as like a rebirth. Same. And the thing is because for me personally, when I had that ego death experience, and I thought I died, it made me so grateful for all of the things that I took for granted in life. And then it also showed me that I needed to be more mindful and pay more attention to people that I might have been taking for granted or not giving enough attention to in my life. So I think an ego death is a really beautiful thing because it gives you a rebirth experience and it puts you in a place of gratitude for all of the things that you might not have been grateful for up to that point.
I agree. You say it so much better than I do.
He's just well practiced.
He's very well versed. Amazing. That's what I meant.
No, I can completely relate to you, and that's why I really just, but I also do talk about this stuff every single day.
It's amazing. This is amazing. Yeah. I never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be sitting here talking about my journey in ketamine treatments. It was very cliche. You can't talk about that.
How cool is it?
But then I talk about it and I'm like, yeah, guys, you don't understand. Like, it changed my brain. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd feel my brain starting to mend back together the amount of drugs that I did in my past and where I was emotionally or mentally, I was an unstable person. And like today, I walk into the grocery store and I hand people my little Jesus and say, here, I hope you have a beautiful day. Or I offer to hold the door for someone, like the smallest act of kindness that goes a really long way for other people.
I was
And
at the
that's why like sharing your story too is so important, because people are so scared to share their story, but then they're scared to do the treatments too. So just being so brave and open, it's a huge act of service.
You have no idea how many people come to the clinic now to do treatments, and they're like, I watched this podcast and it really resonated with me. Or like, I watched this one and it really spoke to me and I wanted what that person had. And so like keeping this kind of stuff to yourself when you found something that works so incredibly well, I almost feel like it's an injustice.
It's doing a disservice.
A disservice, because people need to know about this. It changed my life the way that it did. I was just like, I need to tell everybody about this, and like it's almost criminal not to. I actually had 2 Marines sitting in my office like a month and a half ago, and they looked at me and they said, it's criminal that the VA isn't telling everybody about this, because both of them were in a really tough place and it completely changed their lives. And they're just like, why aren't we getting educated about this? How come they're not talking about this? And so, but then at the same time though, it's complicated and hard because I also have military personnel that have those kind of experiences, but then they're like, but I can't talk about this. It's like, well, hey man, sit down and do a podcast with me or whatever. And it's like, I can't talk about it because, I could get my benefits taken away or something like that. So when we can get somebody that's had such a positive experience with the treatments on the show, I really appreciate people like you coming on and sharing your story, because it's helping so many people.
Thank you for having me. I come from a military family. My father was a Marine, sister Air Force, grandfather Navy, all of the above. And it is a disservice and it's a shame that we can't have these conversations, or doing it in secret, or not being able to talk about it. Who am I? I'm just another person, that's found ketamine and said, wow, I want to talk to everybody about this, because if it changed me, my PTSD, anxiety, depression, lack of self-worth, like this was it for me. That kind of hurts my heart that, military can't have the same benefits that we do.
Yeah.
But it's also breaking out and being a rule breaker in other people's eyes, because how dare you go and do something that's going to help you? Yeah. It helped me, so why is it so shameful for other people to talk about it?
Well, the fact that it's like, it's okay for people to go and drink themselves to death though, because it's socially accepted because it's legal. But here's the thing though, and this is where I think people keep dropping the ball with ketamine. It's like, it's legal too.
Yeah.
It's legal and it's prescribed by a doctor. There's people that even like I know that are in recovery that are like, well, I'm okay with people drinking when I go out to dinner with them and stuff like that, which you should be. People should be able to do whatever they want. But then that being said though, but those same people would be against somebody doing ketamine therapy, even though it's prescribed by a doctor. And instead of it being a depressant like alcohol, it's actually an antidepressant and it's medicine for the mind.
Do you know how many ads I see on Facebook or Instagram with ketamine treatments at home? That they send out ketamine treatment, you can do it at your house. I would never. And I've done ketamine treatments. The difference between your facility and doing something like that, it's the comfort of your own home, but I would rather do a ketamine treatment at your facility. You're taken care of, you get your blood medication, you get checked on. The last one, the lady told me I almost jumped out of the chair and I don't remember that part. So
I was in there with you.
Something big was happening. I don't remember you being in there. Like, I don't remember what happened, but when I woke up, I could feel my ego death, and it was shedding the old and allowing the new to come in. I didn't know what that felt like. Yeah. I just thought we were supposed to be miserable the entire time, because that was my experience. I was so miserable my first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And then I woke up one day and I said, this can't be it. If this is it, I don't want it.
I think that everybody in recovery is looking for that. I just want to feel like normal people, even though there's normals just a setting on the dryer or whatever it is, or normal's like a setting on, I don't know.
Dishwasher.
Dishwasher. Yeah.
Oh.
But the thing is that I always thought that I was going to be miserable. I always, no matter if I was sober or not, like I was miserable in my addiction, I was miserable in my sobriety. And I thought that I just got dealt this awful hand where ketamine changed that for me. I wasn't miserable anymore. And it gave me everything that I had been seeking for so long with none of the symptoms and me having to white knuckle it, trying to fight off cravings to go out and drink to, you know, get rid of the anxiety and the symptoms of my PTSD. And so I think that that's a really important message for people out there too, is that if you're looking to like not have to struggle to get through your days anymore, or if you have to go to a meeting every single day because if you think that you don't, you're going to relapse somehow, I think ketamine's a really good option because it'll get you to a place where you don't feel like that anymore.
That's incredible. Yeah. I was blown away when I saw them being able to send ketamine out through the mail into your house and to do it. I wouldn't want to do it alone.
It's super irresponsible.
We're not meant to do it alone.
No, we're not.
Life or anything.
No. Listen, like you would never tell somebody to go take psychedelic. Like you would never say, oh, hey, you should go drop acid by yourself. Or like, hey, you should go eat a bunch of mushrooms by like a macro dose of mushrooms by yourself. You would always want somebody there to make sure that you're safe and take care of you and look after you. It's like even with alcohol, if somebody goes out to a bar on a Friday night, you would want them to have somebody that was with them, maybe the designated driver or the sober friend that was making sure everybody was safe. You, with any mind-altering substance, you should always have some level of support with you to make sure that you're going to be okay.
Agreed.
Thank you so much for coming back in and sharing more of your story with us and really showing us the evolution of like, you know, how far you've come along and all of these amazing things with your new company that's happening in your life. I really, really am very proud and honored to have you as a friend.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you.
It's been great.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the My Self Wellness Podcast. And just remember, if nobody's told you that they love you lately, we do.